Sushruta for NEET is now available on the Google Play Store. Try it out for free.
And these plants reproduce sexually also. And whenever we just move out, we just get the different scents or perfumes. We smell the perfumes produced by these flowers, or we are also getting attracted by the color of the flowers. And all these, whatever the different colors the flowers show or the scent they produce, these are to help in sexual reproduction. They all aid in sexual reproduction. Flowers do not exist only for us to be used for our own selfishness. All flowering plants show sexual reproduction. A look at the diversity of structures of inflorescence. If you look into the flower, they do show different types of inflorescence. You heard about racemose, cymose inflorescence in the last year. You would come across the diversity in the flowers, in their floral parts, and also they show amazing range of adaptation to ensure formation of the end product of sexual reproduction, that is fruits and seeds. That means you see in case of these flowering plants, different types of flowers, different shaped flowers, different colored flowers, different types of fruits, and also different types of seeds. In this chapter, we are going to understand the morphology, the structure, and the process of sexual reproduction in flowering plants. You know, flowering plants are called by one word, that is angiosperms. We are now looking into the sexual reproduction in flowering plants with a special reference to angiosperms. Human beings have had an intimate relationship with the flowers since time immemorial. You know, whenever we offer this prayer to God, we use different flowers to pray different God, or to do the prayer by offering different types of flowers. Flowers are objects of aesthetic beauty, ornamental, social, religious, and cultural value. You know, different types of flowers are attached with the different types of god or goddess. They have also been used as a symbol for conveying important human feelings such as love, affection, happiness, grief, mourning, etc. Yeah, am I right? You people use China rose on the day of February 14th. Am I right? Diti, is it a China rose used on
Yes,
Valentine Day?
sir. Sir, can
Is
you
it, is it a China rose is used on the Valentine Day? What is China rose? You know?
Yes, sir, I know.
Is it a China rose is given by a boy to girl or girl to boy? Or rose?
Sir, I don't know, sir.
You don't know. I am not telling that whether you give. You have seen it. No? Which flower is offered? Rakesh? Rose
Rose,
or
sir.
China rose? China rose is hibiscus, not China rose. China rose not given. Rose is used by the people on Valentine Day. You know, different types of flowers are offered in the expression of human feelings such as love, affection, happiness, grief, mourning, etc., etc. Right? Now, to a biologist, flowers are morphological and embryological structures and the sites of sexual reproduction. You have studied in the 11th standard about the various parts of the flower, and also here you have the typical diagram of a flower with the sepals, which give protection to the flower bud, the petals which attract the pollinators, and androecium, that is the male part, and gynoecium, that is the female part. All these you have studied in the last year. Now let us study the pre-fertilization structures and events. right? Much before the actual flower is seen on a plant, the decision that the plant is going to flower has taken place. How? It is because of the secretion of several hormones. You know, before the flower gets formed, flower bud gets formed. Several hormonal and structural changes are initiated which lead to the differentiation and further development of floral primordium. Floral primordium is just like a leaf primordium or shoot primordium, root primordium. It is one which is going to form the flower, floral. Inflorescences are formed which bear the floral buds and then the flower. Cluster of flowers form what is called inflorescence. In a flower, the male and the female reproductive structures, especially androecium and gynoecium, differentiate and develop. Androecium is a male reproductive structure and gynoecium is a female reproductive structure. You would recollect that androecium consists of whorls of stamens representing the male reproductive organ and the gynoecium represents the female reproductive organ. Okay, these all you have studied in the last year. Now let us study stamen, microsporangium and pollen grain. Figure 2.2, this is what you have, the figure 2.2. It shows two parts of a typical stamen. The long, slender, stalk called filament. This is what you have, the filament, and the terminal, generally bilobed. Very important, bilobed structure, that is the anther. Anther is always bilobed, generally bilobed. The proximal end of the filament is attached to the thalamus or the petal of the flower. So always this end is called distal end. Distal end is generally free end. And this end is the one which is either found attached to the thalamus. This is the part where you come across the thalamus or receptacle, or it is found attached to the petals of the flower. I hope you have understood this. Now, the number and the length of stamens are variable in the flowers of different species. You can see here, this is little bit long and this is quite short. The length is variable and also the number of the stamens variable. We shall see there is variation with regard to length of the stamen and the number of stamens from flower to flower. We shall see them, right? Now, if you are to collect a stamen, each from 10 flowers, what are you going to do? You are going to collect a stamen each from 10 flowers, that is from 10 different species, and arrange them on a slide. You would be able to appreciate the large variation in size seen in nature. It is not that in all flowers the length will be the same. It will be variable. Okay? And also in its other structure. Careful observation of each stamen under a dissecting microscope. There are two types of microscope. One is compound microscope, which you use to see minutest organism. Dissecting microscope is generally used to work out a plant material. And making neat diagrams would elucidate the range in shape and attachment of anthers in the different flowers. Shape of anthers will be different and attachment of anthers also will be different in different flowers. Let us see. A typical angiosperm anther is a bilobed. You can see here, it is bilobed. This is one lobe, this is another lobe. It is bilobed, very important point. A typical angiosperm anther is bilobed with each lobe having two theca. Each lobe having two theca. Theca means covering. So it is bilobed and it is with the two theca covering. So therefore it is called a dithecus. Di means two, theca means covering. Dithecus. So remember it is bilobed and each lobe is dithecus. Often a longitudinal groove, as you can make out, a longitudinal groove runs lengthwise separating the theca, separating the cover. Okay, separating the theca. You see the lengthwise groove. Okay, lengthwise groove. Right? Stamens may be free or united. If united, they can be of the following types. Very, very important. It is there in your practical also. Stamens may be free or united. If united, they can be following types. Please concentrate on that. So now, what you have studied, a typical a typical that male reproductive system or androecium. It consists of, as you know, it consists of a filament and anther. So a stamen has the filament and anther, and this filament may be short or long, and anther is always bilobed, and it is also anther is bilobed, and it is a dithecous covered by two cover theca, and there is a longitudinal groove separating the theca lengthwise. So now the stamens may be free or united. You can have the screenshot for this, and this you have to note down in your notes. As we all teachers are repeatedly telling you, you have to prepare your own notes, and you'll be asked to show these notes by our mentor. Our mentor will be asked to show, you're asking you to show this. So look here. This is what you have the different types of united flower. Whenever the flowers are united, they can be of the following types. Look here. What is known as syngenesious stamens? Syn means fused. Syngenesious stamens. Filaments are free. Look here. Filaments are free and the anthers are united. Anthers are united. Syngenesious stamens. Syngenesious stamens are the one where the filaments are free and anthers are united together into a tube. Anthers are united together into a tube. Example is a sunflower and marigold. Sunflower and marigold, that is example for syngenesious stamens. I'll show that actual actual stamen later. You have another one that is called synandrous stamens. Stamens are united through to their whole length by filaments and anthers. Here, the anthers are also fused and filaments are also fused, and such one called synandrous. Synandrous. Synandrous flowers are seen in the family Cucurbitaceae. Let us see them. Look here. This is what you have. Syngenesious stamens. Syngenesious stamens are the one where filaments are free. Look here. Filaments are free, but anthers are fused. All this what you see, the anthers are fused. Anthers are fused, filaments are free, anthers are united together into a tube. Example, sunflower and marigold. And here, synandrous, stamens are united. Look here, stamens are united through their whole length. Filaments are also united and anthers are also united. Anthers are also united. So this is what you have. Filaments, anthers and filaments are united, and you come across them in the Cucurbitaceae family. If at all you look into cucumber or watermelon, etc., you see that it is synandrous stamen. Now, Adelphous stamens, anthers remain free and filaments are united. Anthers are free, filamentous united. Adelphous condition can be, remember, what is adelphous? Anthers remain free. Adelphous. Filaments are united. And adelphous condition can be, look here, monadelphous. Monadelphous, when the stamens of a flower are united as a tube around the style of the carpel, united to form one bundle, as you see in the China rose. This is China rose. And here, I have said, monadelphous, anthers remain free. Anthers remain free. Filaments are united. See, these are all anthers what you see. Anthers you see. These anthers are all free and filaments are united. Filaments are united and it is one bundle, monadelphous. When the stamens of flower are united, it's a tube around the style. This is the style. This is the style around the style. Monadelphous. We have, this is the same monadelphous. We have what is called some other. You can see here. All these anthers are free, but the filaments are united. All these are examples for that of monadelphous. Now we have diadelphous. This is when the stamens are united into two groups, whereas monadopus was just one group. Also, besides the two groups, there is one lone stamen hanging out by itself, as you can see in the family Fabaceae. Look here. This is what you have one stamen, separate, distinct stamen, and all these others are united together. Diadelphus, so two bundle. That is in Fabaceae. Okay, Fabaceae, beans and all you come across here in this particular family, pea and all. So this is Diadelphus. It is Polyadelphus. The stamens are united in many bundles by fusion of their filaments, anther being free here. Anthers are all free, but that filaments are fused in many bundles, and that you come across in our lemon, polyadelphus. So remember which are the examples for monadelphus, diadelphus, polyadelphus, right? Okay, now you have some of these stamens epipetalous. Stamens of a flower are fused with the petals, epipetalous petal. So sunflower, you can see this is a sunflower, and datura, this is a datura. Here, stamens of the flower are fused with the petals, then it's called epipetalous. And here, epiphyllous, when stamens are fused with the perianth, as in the flowers of a lily, perianth, right? This is what is called epiphyllous, and it's epipetalous, epiphyllous. All these terms you must know very well. Now, let us look into the attachment of filament to anther. All these are there in your practical syllabus, and they may be likely to be asked in examination. Okay. Attachment of filament to anther. Basifixer. The filament is attached to the base of the anther. Example, mustard. Adnate. Filament attached along the whole length of the anther. Michelia, magnolia. Dorsifixer. Filament attached to the back of the anther, passion flower, and versatile, anther lobes attached to the filament in the middle portion with both ends free, Graminae family. So please remember these terms like basifixer, as the name itself indicates, the base of the anther, adnate, whole length of the anther, dorsifixer, attached to the back of the anther, back is always called a dorsal, back of the anther, versatile, anther lobes attached with the filament in the middle portion, keeping the two ends free. I shall show you these all different types of flowers. Basifixer. You can see a filament attached to the base. Look here, attached to the base of the anther. Basifixer. Mustard. Basifixer. Okay. And here, adnate. Adnate is filament attached along the whole length of the anther. Whole length of the anther. It is attached to the whole length of the anther. So it is Michelia, magnolia, etc. Okay. So this is what you have dorsifixed. It is dorsifixed, dorsal back. Filament attached to the back of the anther, passion flower, back of the anther. Okay. Now you have here versatile. See, it is attached with the filament in the middle portion, and the two ends are free. Two ends are free. Graminae family. So I hope you have understood this. Is it clear? Jyoti?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Rakesh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right? Now let us see a little bit more about this stamen and anther filament, especially anther. Let us understand various types of tissues and their organization in the transverse section of an anther. What you see in a diagram is a transverse section. This is how it looks. It is magnified. Now, the bilobed nature of an anther is very distinct in the transverse section of the anther. You can see bilobed, right? Very clearly you can see. You can see a bilobed nature of the anther. The anther is a four-sided, tetragonal. See, four-sided. It is a tetragonal, four-sided, tetragonal structure consisting of four microsporangia located at the corners. 4 microsporangia located at the corners, microsporangia. The microsporangia develop further and become pollen sacs. So here, these microsporangia and pollen sacs are one the same, where you see the microspores to get formed and pollen grains to get formed. They extend longitudinally all to the length of the anther and are packed with the pollen grains. These are the pollen grains. And these, what you see, these are the microsporangia. Right? Now, structure of a microsporangium. We are looking into one such microsporangium or one such pollen sac. In a transverse section, a typical microsporangium appears near circular in outline. This is what you have, near circular in outline, right? It is generally surrounded by 4 wall layers. Now let us see this. A part of this we are going to study. 4 wall layers. What are they? They are the outermost epidermis. This epidermis very important for a 4 marks question. Microsporangium. You will be asked to label it. You will be asked to draw a diagram, or you will be asked to explain. So the microsporangium is surrounded by 4 wall layers. Epidermis. Then you have inner to this epidermis, you have the next one, endothecium. Endo means inside. Thecium refers to cover. Endothecium. And next you would come across, inner to that you come across middle layers. Inner to that you would come across tapetum. This is the tapetum. Where you come across the nucleus, this is the tapetum. Okay, tapetum. So you have 4 wall layers. Always you are asked to write down the correct order of arrangement. Outermost is epidermis. Inner to epidermis is endothecium. Inner to endothecium is middle layer. Inner to middle layer is a tapetum. Okay, let us see that. The outer 3 wall layers perform. That means epidermis, endothecium, and that of the middle layers. These outer 3 wall layers perform the function of protection. They are mainly concerned with protection and help in dehiscence or breaking down of anther to release the pollen. The innermost wall layer is the tapetum. This is what you have. You see that with the prominent nucleus, that the tapetum, it nourishes the developing pollen grains. Therefore, tapetum is concerned with the nourishment of the pollen grains. Cells of the tapetum possess dense cytoplasm. It possesses a dense cytoplasm and generally have more than one nucleus. You can see here only one nucleus in this diagram, but sometimes you come across more than one nucleus. Of course, it is karyogammy will be there, and it is not followed by the cytogamy or the division of the cell cytoplasm. Now, so coming back here, can you think how tapetal cells would become binucleate? As I said, after nuclear division, there is no cytoplasmic division. When the anther is young, a group of compactly arranged homogeneous means all the cells of same type, a group of compactly and homogeneous cells called sporogenous tissue occupies the center of each microsporangium. So if you look here, what you have here, this is the sporogenous tissue. And this is what sporogenous tissue inside. Sporogenous tissue, right? This is what sporogenous tissue. Outer to sporogenous tissue, we have tapetum, sporogenous tissue. You can see here, this is the tapetum. Outer to tapetum, there is endothecium. Outer to endothecium, you come across epidermis. Epidermis, endothecium, middle layer, and tapetum. Outer to tapetum, middle layer. Outer to middle layer, endothecium. So epidermis, endothecium, middle layer, and tapetum. These are the 4 wall layers, 4 walls that are found outside the sporogenous tissue. So central portion is sporogenous tissue, Now let us say what is this sporogenous tissue is found of. As you know, the sporogenous tissue occupies the center of each microsporangium. Now, look here. The microsporogenesis. Microsporogenesis takes place in the sporogenous tissue. As the anther develops, the cells of sporogenous tissue undergo meiotic division. Remember, the cells, what are the cells? We shall see there. Whatever you do come across sporogenous tissue, in this sporogenous tissue, the cells of the sporogenous tissue undergo meiotic division to form microspore tetrad. So since it is meiotic division, the cells which are formed in the tetrad, microspore tetrad will be haploid, because it results from meiotic division. Look here, as each cell of the sporogenous tissue, each cell, this is what you have, sporogenous tissue here. Since each cell of sporogenous tissue is capable of giving rise to a microspore tetrad, each one is a potential pollen or microspore mother cell. So here, whatever you come across here, the cell in the inside the sporogenous tissue, they are called microspore mother cells. So in the sporogenous tissue, we have microspore mother cells, or they are also called pollen mother cells. They are the potential pollen or microspore mother cell because they form microspore. The process of formation of microspores from a pollen mother cell or PMC, pollen mother cell or microspore mother cell, through meiosis is called microsporogenesis. So microsporogenesis is nothing but formation of microspore or formation of the pollen grains. Okay, I hope you understand my point. So next here, look into that. The microspores, as they are formed, are arranged in a cluster of 4 cells, and we call them microspore tetrad. So microspores will be arranged in a group of 4 cells because they are formed by meiosis. In meiosis, one parent cell divides first from 2 daughter cells, that both of them they divide and form 4 daughter cells, and these are called a tetrad. Look here, this is what a microsporophyte. Microsporophyte is microsporocyte is another name for the pollen mother cell. Microsporocyte, a diploid cell that undergoes meiosis to produce microspores as part of microsporogenesis, and microsporocyte is also called microspore mother cell or pollen mother cell. Pollen mother cell, microspore mother cell, and microsporocyte, they are one the same. You can see here, microsporocyte undergoes meiosis and forms 4 daughter cells, which together form tetrad. And after that, these tetrads are separate, and each will become one pollen grain. Okay? Look here. As the anthers mature and dehydrate, the microspores, which are present in a group of 4, dissociate from each other and develop into pollen grains. So all this what you see, these are all pollen grains. Prior to that, they are present in a group of 4, what is called microspora tetrad. Okay. Inside each microsporangium, several thousands of microspores or pollen grains are formed that are released with the dehiscence of anther. You can see here. This is what dehiscence has taken place. Rupturing of the anther has taken place just to shed these pollen grains. Right? This diagram we have seen already. Right? Now, any doubt? Have you understood? Have you understood?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
No, sir.
Concept is clear? This concept, whatever you study, you have to read today itself, and within shortest time possible, you have to prepare your own notes. If you don't prepare your notes, it is not at all possible to get good rank, good marks. Please, I am telling, every teacher is telling, you have to make your own notes. Right? Now, let me just cover the next part, pollen grain. The pollen grains represent the male gametophyte. Okay? Very important sentence. the pollen grains represent male gametophyte. If you touch the opened anthers of hibiscus, China rose, or any flower, you would find a deposition of yellowish powdery pollen grains on your finger. You take any flower and touch that anther, touch the opened anther, you'll get some shining structures in your fingers, yellowish powdery pollen grains on your finger. Sprinkle these grains on a drop of water, take on a glass slide and observe under microscope. You'll really be amazed at the variety of architecture, size, shape, color, and designs seen on the pollen grains from different species. If you just take for curiosity purpose, just take some flower and just touch the anther and take just squeeze them in your fingers, put a drop of water to your finger and put it on a slide and start observing this under microscope in a laboratory. If at all you get 10 flowers, you'll get 10 different types of pollen grains with regard to their size, shape, color, and design. This is how they appear. Look here, these are the scanning electron microscope of micrographs of a few pollen grains. Look how they are different. All these are different types because they are collected from different flowers, right? You see here. These are all of different flowers. Shape is different. Color is different. Okay. Structure is different. Okay. This is what you see from different types of flowers, their pollen grains. Now, pollen grains are generally spherical, measuring about, very important, 25 to 50 micrometer in diameter. Ask it is. What is the size? Pollen grains are generally spherical, rounded structure, measuring about 25 to 50 micrometer in diameter. It has a prominent two-layered wall. Prominent two-layered wall. What are that? The hard outer layer is called exine. This is hard outer layer, what you call exine. Hard outer layer is called exine. It is made up of sporopollenin. Again, it is asked what material it is made up of. Harder outer cover called exine is made up of sporopollenin, which is one of the most resistant organic material on the earth. Remember, most resistant organic material on the earth. It can withstand high temperatures and strong acids and alkali. Okay, that is why many times whenever you eat some of these flowers or like that, they will be remaining there, the cover will be remaining there, and the next day you see them as such passing out in your fecal matter, even though it comes in contact with the acids in our stomach or alkalis. It can withstand high temperature, strong acid and alkali. No enzyme on this earth can degrade sporopollenin so far. That much strong is sporopollenin. Right? It is found in the outer covering, what is called exine. The hard outer layer of the pollen grain is called exine, and it's made up of sporopollenin, which is one of the most resistant organic material, and no enzyme can degrade the sporopollenin material. And it can withstand high temperature and strong acids and alkali. Pollen grain exine has a prominent aperture called germpore. There is one aperture. You can see it. Only at this particular aperture, there is no sporopollenin. Pollen grains are well preserved as fossil because of the presence of sporopollenin. The exine exhibits a fascinating array of patterns and design. Remember, where there is germpore, there is no sporopollenin. Sporopollenin is absent at the region of germpore, at the region of pore, right? Pore. Pollen grains, exine has a prominent aperture called germpore, where sporopollenin is absent. Pollen grains are well preserved because of the hard nature of the sporopollenin, because of their resistance power to the acids and alkalis and high temperature. The inner wall of the pollen grain is called intine, outer exine. Inner is called intine. It is a thin, and continuous layer made up of cellulose and pectin. Always ask a question. It is made up of cellulose and pectin. Inner layer. It is a continuous layer. Even where the germ pore is there, it is continuous. The cytoplasm of the pollen grain is surrounded by a plasma membrane. When the pollen grain is mature, it contains two cells. Very important. One is vegetative cell. This is what you have, vegetative cell. And another one is the generative cell. This is the generative cell. Small one. Vegetative cell is larger one. So pollen grain, when it is mature enough, it contains two cells. One is the vegetative cell, and another one is generative cell. Generative cell. So you have here two of these, right? So one is the large one, and is the small one. Let us see where you come across them, right? So the vegetative cell, very important, is bigger. This is vegetative cell. It is bigger. Not only it is bigger, has abundant food reserve and a large irregularly shaped nucleus. Irregularly shaped nucleus. Large irregularly shaped nucleus. It is with the abundant food reserve. The generative cell is a small, floats. Of course, it is shown down below. Other set of floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell. Pollen grain will be asked for short note question, or sometimes you may be asked to write the diagram and explain. So, generative cell is a small, vegetative cell is a big. Vegetative cell has a irregularly shaped nucleus and also has a food reserve material. So, generative cell is a small, floats in the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell, and the generative cell is a spindle-shaped with a dense cytoplasm and a nucleus. Dense cytoplasm nucleus. Very important is that in over 60% of the angiosperms, pollen grains are shed at this two-celled stage. Very, very important. In over 60% of the angiosperms, pollen grains are shed at this two-cell stage with the generative cell and vegetative cell. In the remaining 40% of the species, the generative cell, down below, the generative cell divides mitotically to give rise to two male gametes before pollen grains are shed, and now it is a three-cell stage. Three-cell stage, that is generative cell divides into two male gametes and the vegetative cell. 2 plus 1, it is a three-cell stage. Very, very important concept. Right? This is with regard
Sir.
to background. Come on.
Sir, if it is dense, how it will float, sir?
Which one?
Generative cell.
Generative cell?
Dense cytoplasm. Generative cell has the dense cytoplasm, no, sir.
What do you mean by dense cytoplasm? Dense cytoplasm means there is very, very thick cytoplasm, with not a dead cytoplasm. It is a dense cytoplasm is with all in materials inside. Understood? With all ingredients, densities, not to loose. It is the dense. It is spindle-shaped with the dense cytoplasm in the nucleus, right? With all ingredients of the cell, right? So, vegetative cell is with the food reserve, and it has abundant food reserve, but here it has abundant dense cytoplasm with the cell organelles. Pollen grains of many species cause severe allergies and bronchial afflictions in some people, often leading to chronic respiratory disorder, asthma, and bronchitis. So you see here, this is a weed called Parthenium. It may be mentioned that Parthenium, commonly called carrot grass, very important. Parthenium is commonly called carrot grass. That came into India as contaminated imported wheat, has become ubiquitous in occurrence and causes pollen allergy. Ubiquitous in occurrence means occurring everywhere, throughout. It is found throughout the country. It has become very, very problematic wheat now. It has come when we have imported wheat in the ship. Along with that wheat, the seeds of these plants also have come, and they have started growing wherever space is there. Parthenium, commonly called carrot grass. So, pollen grains are rich in nutrients. It has become a fashion in recent years to use pollen tablets as a food supplement. Pollen tablets prepared of pollen grains because it is very much rich with the nutrients. In Western countries, a large number of pollen products in the form of tablets and in the form of syrups are available in the market. Pollen consumption has been claimed to increase performance of athletes and racehorses. So this is what the bee pollen you have in the market. So in this way, the pollen products are sold just to improve the performance by the athletes and the racehorses because it is rich in nutrients, right? So that's all about this particular aspect. When once they are shed, pollen grains are shed, pollen grains have to land on the stigma before they lose viability if they have to bring about fertilization. Before they lose viability means before they lose the ability to pollinate or fertilize. How long do you think pollen grains retain viability? Viability means the survivability. How long they remain with the power of fertilizing the ovum? The period for which pollen grains remain viable is highly variable. To some extent, depends on the prevailing temperature and humidity. But anyhow, in some cereals such as rice, wheat, pollen grains lose viability within 30 minutes of their release. Once they are released, within 30 minutes, they should come in contact with the stigma. Otherwise, they will lose the ability to fertilize. And in some members of Rosaceae, where you have the rose flower, Leguminoscae includes your all these pulses and all. Solanaceae, they maintain viability for months together. Very, very important sentence. Rosaceae, Leguminaceae, Solanaceae maintain viability for months. Rice, wheat, they lose viability within 30 minutes of their release. Right? Okay? You may have heard of storing semen in case of animals and all, sperms of many animals, including humans, for artificial insemination. It is possible to store pollen grains also. Large amount of these pollen grains are stored in the liquid nitrogen at minus 196 degrees centigrade. Very important. They are stored in the liquid nitrogen at minus 196 degrees centigrade. Such stored pollen can be used as pollen banks, similar to seed banks in crop breeding programs, right? So that's all about this male microsporangium and the formation of pollen grains. Come on. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, any doubt?
Yes.
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
No, right? So, can you recall now whatever you have studied right from beginning? Who are there? Is it only two? Am I right? Rakesh and Jyoti.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Who will start now? I want you to just recall. Even if at all you look into the book, doesn't matter, but you must tell continuously right from beginning whatever taught. Who will start? Jyoti, can you start?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
first, we spoke about the flower. A flower is a modified condensed shoot to perform sexual reproduction in angiosperms. And then we started with pre-fertilization structures and events. In that, the first one was stamen or the microsporophyll. So the stamen consists of two parts, the anther and the filament. Anther is the broad nod-like structure, and um, Okay, in angiospermic anthers, there are two lobes, and such anthers are called diathecous. And a diathecous anther consists of four microsporangia. That is, four microsporangia means two in each lobe. Um, um, and monothecous anthers are those which consist of two microsporangia, one in each lobe. Okay, filament. Filament is the long stalk-like structure. Um, um, yes, so that's it about that. And then, uh, what should I explain? So, like the anther layers of the anthers, or
Okay, continue. Huh? Okay,
yes.
you take some time. Come on. Rakesh, continue it.
Yes. Now we studied the structure of microsporangium. In the structure of the microsporangium, in the transverse section, sir, there are the four layers, and in the center
Continue.
there are microsporangia, sir. The four layers of the cells are outermost layer is epidermis, then endothelium, then middle layers, and then the tapetum. And then this outer three layers helps in the protection function, sir. Then inner tapetum helps in the nourishing the
What is there? What are the layers? Outer epidermis, inner.
endothelium and middle layers.
Okay. Inner to that,
Tapetum, sir.
epitum. Okay. Come on. Yeah.
Tapetum. This tapetum helping the nourishing the pollen grains, sir.
Yeah.
Then and then this they are bilobe structure. Sorry, they have the binucleate. They are
Hmm.
binucleate and they are binucleate,
They
and
may
then
be binucleate. They may be. Not that
they
every thing. Yeah.
they may be binucleate, and then they help in the nourishing, sir.
Hmm. Continue.
And then each microsporangium gives rise to the four microtetrads.
You have skipped
Microtetrads there
that.
gives
What is there inside? What is there inside this tapetum? What do you call that
the
tissue?
sporogenous tissue.
What is there in the sporogenous tissue?
So dense
Yeah,
cytoplasm.
Okay. No sporogenous tissue is found of. What is there in that sporogenous tissue?
young anthers.
What you call them? Sporogenous tissue. There are some cells in sporogenous tissue. Yes, come on, Jyoti.
So is it sporangium?
Yeah. What type of cells are there which undergo meiosis
Microspore mother cells.
or also called
Potential pollen.
pollen mother cell, also called microsporocyte. It undergoes meiotic division and forms. Come on.
Microspore tetrads, sir.
Yeah. Then what happens?
As the anthers get matured, they dehydrate, and then the rupture of the anther will take place, sir, from the microsporangium, and then
There will be pollen grains, right?
yes, sir.
Okay. That is okay. Yeah, okay, come on. Then what else I said? Come on, pollen grains.
And then pollen grains are also called as male gametophytes, sir.
Yeah.
Then these pollen grains are generally spherical, sir. They have the diameter of 25 to 50 micrometers, sir.
Okay.
Then the pollen grain's outer layer is called as exine. It is made up of sporopollenin.
1 minute. Jyoti, continue it.
Sir, about pollen grain, sir. So the pollen grain is about 25 to 50 micrometer in diameter, and then the cell wall of the pollen grain is called the sporoderm, and then this consists of two layers: the exine, the hard exine outer layer, and the inner thin layer, that's the intine. The exine is made up of sporopollenin. This sporopollenin is a fatty substance and one of the most resistant organic material on earth. And then this sporopollenin can it is not affected by any high temperature or strong alkali and acids. Um, so
Yes, good. Continue. Then.
this pollen grains exine has apertures called germ pore where sporopollenin is present. Then intine is made up of cellulose and pectin.
Okay. And intine is continuous all around.
Yes, sir.
Sporopollenin is lacking in where we have germ pore. Then, come on. Rakesh, continue it.
Then it has two cells. One is generative and then the vegetative cell, sir.
Yeah.
Vegetative cell is larger compared to the generative cell, and then it is irregular in the
What is
irregular
irregular?
nucleus, sir.
Yeah.
And then this generative cell floats on the vegetative cell's cytoplasm.
What vegetative cytoplasm has? What vegetative cytoplasm has?
Reserve food material, sir.
Yeah. Then.
Then it generative cell floats on the cytoplasm of the vegetative cell.
Okay, fine. Then, Jyoti, continue it.
So the generative cell is spindle shaped with dense cytoplasm. Um,
Then, what is the nature of the pollen grain at the time of its release?
two cells. No, sir. Nature.
In 60% of that. Then, in 40%? In 40%, what happens?
Sir,
The generative cell divides and forms into two gametes.
okay,
So,
sir.
the pollen grain is released in a 3-cell stage. Okay? And you know the
Yes.
pollen grains are rich with the nutrients. As such, it is used by the sports person as a substitute for the, what is that? It
As
increases
supplements, sir.
Yeah, supplement, it increases the performance of athletes. And also I mentioned that viability and all. This sentence you must remember. What is that? Serious rice, wheat, pollen grains lose viability in 30 minutes of their release, whereas in the members of the family, Rosaceae, leguminous Solanaceae, they maintain viability for months together. Understood? And another one is they can be stored in liquid nitrogen. Understood? Right?
Yes, sir.
Lord,
Yes, sir.
this is how you have to listen to the class, and this is how I am going to question you. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I will be sending the MCQs pertaining to this once the chapter gets over, or sometimes I may send before also, and you must be thorough, and every alternate Sundays you will be having exams, and you will be telling you. And your next exam is on 17th, right? 17th you will be having the test. Be prepared to write the test pertaining to both first year, 3 hours, second year, 3 hours. It may be a marathon examination for you. Okay. You are not supposed to forget. And as I told you, once we start very studiously and very systematically. We do that. Okay? Understood?
Sir, in the test, sir, is it going to be like board paper, like theory, or is it MCQs?
No. Board paper you will not do because your college gives you sufficient board paper. Once
Okay,
you are
sir.
thorough with the concept, you will write in the board examination whatever college gives. Now, how many chapters are over for in your colleges?
In biology, sir, one.
Yeah.
Sir,
Human reproduction over?
reproduction in organisms, sexual reproduction in flowering plants, human reproduction, reproductive health, and then a principle of inheritance and variation, molecular basis of inheritance that their mom is still doing, and human health and diseases is done. Microbes in human welfare, they're still doing, and biotechnology first lesson is over, sir.
Okay. So they are very fast now. Okay. Anyhow, we are going to do like that in slowly, one by one, and you must get good marks there also. Okay. Right?
Sir,
Rakesh? Yeah, come on.
sir, so we'll have MCQs basically, sir, for all.
Yeah. We prepare you for seat and NEET.
Okay, sir.
Both. Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
Rakesh, are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Don't you feel that whatever I'm teaching you now, making your concept very much strong
Yes, sir.
by covering each and every point in NCERT book? Diti?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now let us start with the female part. Okay. The pistil, the megasporangium. Megasporangium is ovule, otherwise called, and embryo sac. We are going to study now. The gynoecium represents the female reproductive part of the flower. Gynoecium. Androecium represents male reproductive part, and gynoecium represents female reproductive part of the flower. The gynoecium may consist of a single pistil, then it is known as monocarpellary. And while explaining, you have never told me what are the different flowers with the long stamen, short stamen, and attachment of the anther to the filament. You did not tell me. You did not tell me monoadelpus, diadelpus, polyadelpus, etc. Do you remember? I have taught that also. Am I right? Diti?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All that. Don't think that they are not there in the NCERT book. They are there in the practicals. And whatever I am telling you, are you taking down on the notes
Yes, sir.
or on the textbook itself? Don't have that bad habit of writing everything on the textbook. You have one notebook with you and take down the points on that note. So, gynoecium represents the female reproductive part of the flower. The gynoecium may consist of a single pistil, then it's called monocarpellary, or may have more than one pistil, multicarpellary. Monocarpellary, multicarpellary. When there are more than one, the pistils may be fused together, syncarpus. Syncarpus. You can see here in the figure, syncarpus. When more than one, the pistils may be fused together to form syncarpus condition, or maybe free apocarpus. Apocarpus. Free. More than one carpel. One carpel, monocarpellary. Single pistil, monocarpellary. You can see a single pistil. Right? So, a dissected flower of hibiscus showing pistil, other flower plots have been removed. B. Multicarpellary, syncarpus. C. Multicarpellary, apocarpus. And a diagrammatic sketch of anatropous ovule. What is that anatropous ovule? I will explain. Right? Okay. So, they may be free apocarpus. Now, this is the same whatever that I have showed you before. Now, these are the diagrams. You can have the screenshot of this. Afterwards, you just pass it on to your notebook and take it down. And look here, on the about the position with regard to the micropyle and shalaja. Here, micropyle, and shalagal pole. Based on this, you have following types of ovule. And just to see the shape, just to see. How is this? This is what is called orthotropous. And this is bent. This is called anatropous. And this is called hemianatropous. And this is called campylotropous. And this shape is called amphitropous. And this is what is called cercinotropous. I will explain this. Okay? I will give you the better diagram also. So see here. Orthotropous ovule. This is orthotropous. Micropyle at another end. At the opposite end, you have the shalagal end. This is what is called orthotropous. Right? So, we shall see that, of course, we can see that here, it is quite folded, it is curved in such a way, micropyle which is either to up, it comes down and the shalagal end goes up. Now, look here. These are the different types of ovules: orthotropous, anatropous, hemianatropous, campylotropous. Right? I shall explain this now. Types of ovule. Ovules have been separated into 6 categories based on their shape. What is orthotropous? Orthotropous is also called atropous. This is where the body of this ovule is straight so that shalaja, where the nucellus and integuments merge, the funicle, which attach the ovule to the placenta, and the micropyle are aligned. This is a micropyle, and this is a shalaja at the 2 opposite ends. This is atropous. Okay. Now, coming to the anatropous, in this case, the ovules become completely inverted. See, orthotropous, completely inverted during the development, so that micropyle lies close to the hilum. This hilum, micropyle lies close to the hilum. Right? So exactly opposite. That means because it is completely inverted. So when I explain this, you can start from here, take it on the screenshot, just to make the concept well understood. Are you hearing me, Jyoti and Rakesh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is orthotropous, anatropous. Orthotropous is also called atropous. This is anatropous. Look here. In anatropous, it is completely inverted. So micropyle comes very close to the hilum end. Okay. Now, what is that hilum? Hilum is a scar that marks the point where the seed was attached to the foot wall by the funicle. So you know this is the funicle, right? Okay. Hemianatropous. Look here. Micropyle comes to the side. The body of this ovis becomes at a right angle in relation to the funicle. This is a funicle. Right angle, 90 degree to the funicle. At the right angle in relation to funicle, so it looks like the ovule is lying on its side. Hemianatropous. So this is a anatropous, completely inverted anatropous. In a straight line, it is orthotropous or atropous. Inverted is anatropous. To the side, it is a hemianatropous. Okay. Campylotropous. This is orthotropous, anatropous, hemianatropous. Campylotropous, the body of this type is bent and the alignment between the shalaja and micropyle is lost. The embryo is only slightly curved. Curved campylotropous. Curved curved. Amphitropous. Amphitropous, the body of the ovule, this is amphitropous. The body of the ovule is very much curved that the embryo sac and the ovule itself take the shape of a horseshoe. It is amphitropous. Cercinotropous. The funicle of this in this case is especially long that it creates a nearly full circle. See, full circle. full circle around the ovule whose microbial is ultimately pointing upwards. Ultimately, microbial is pointing upwards. Pole. So this is what is known as a Sarcinotropous. So you must know just what is important is by seeing this. If at all you by seeing this, if at all you say it is hemianatropous, sufficient. Here orthotropous, atropous, sufficient. Here anatropous, sufficient. This is campylotropous, and this is what is amphitropous and Sarcinotropous. You need not know more than that. Understood? Understood? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Each pistil has three parts: stigma, style, and ovary. The stigma serves as a landing platform for pollen grains. Pollen grains come and sit here. The style is the elongated slender part beneath the stigma. The basal bulged part of the pistil is a ovary. Inside the ovary is the ovarian cavity, or what you call locule. The placenta is located inside the ovarian cavity. You have studied placenta in the last year, right? So this is what you have. The ovary and ovules inside, right? Stigma, style, ovary. Recall the definition types of presentation that you have studied in the last year. Arising from the placenta are the megasporangia, commonly called ovules. These are the ovules, also called megasporangia, commonly called ovules. The number of ovules in an ovary may be one, as is in wheat, paddy, mango, or many or too many, papaya, watermelon, orchids, eudochemicals, many ovules. And ovule is a single in wheat, paddy, and mango. Now let us study. This is anatropous ovule, inverted. Anatropous ovule. You have the shellagel end here, microbial in another. Anatropous. Let us familiarize ourselves with the structure of the typical angiosperm ovule. The ovule is a small structure attached to the placenta by means of a stalk called funicle. This is funicle, stalk. By this stalk, the ovule is attached to the placenta. Okay, right? The body of the ovule fuses with the funicle in the region called hilum. This is the region, hilum, where ovule fuses with the funicle. Thus, hilum represents, this is the hilum. Hilum represents the junction between ovule and funicle. This is the funicle, this is the ovule, and this is the hilum. Each ovule has one or two protective envelopes called integument. You can see outer integument, inner integument. This is the ovule inside. Outside the ovule, you have two integuments, inner and outer integument. Each ovule has two integuments, protective envelopes. They are the protective envelopes, inner and outer. The integuments encircle the ovule, except at the tip where a small opening is present, which is called micropyle. This is a micropyle. I repeat again, you have funicle, then you have hilum, then an ovule with the two integument, outer and inner, and in the center ovule, and it opens to the outside by means of a small aperture called micropyle. Opposite the micropylar end, this is a micropylar end. Opposite to the micropylar end, you have what is called a shellagel end, shallaja, representing the basal part of the ovule. Shallaja is a basal part of the ovule, which lies opposite to the micropyle. Enclosed within the integument, outer integument, inner integument, whatever you have inner to the integument, the part is called nucellus. Enclosed within the integument is a mass of cells called nucellus. Cells of the nucellus have abundant reserve food material. Nucellus is concerned with the nourishment. Located in nucellus is the embryo sac. Embryo sac is others called female gametophyte. Female gametophyte. Which is the male gametophyte? What is male gametophyte called? Jyoti,
So,
what is Rakesh? What is male gametophyte called? Forgotten that one quickly. Rakesh, are you there?
Yes, sir.
What is it called? Jyoti, what is male gametophyte called?
so the
Jyoti,
pollen grains, yeah.
is this much time it took?
No,
Rakesh,
sir, I
you
Yes,
should
sir.
not forget like this. Okay. So now we have, what do you have? Located nucellus is the embryo sac. Embryo sac is otherwise called female gametophyte. And ovule generally has a single embryo sac formed from megaspore through reduction division. Embryo sac is formed, embryo sac is called female gametophyte. And this embryo sac or female gametophyte, embryo sac or female gametophyte is otherwise called embryo sac or female gametophyte. It is just like male gametophyte, what you come across, and this is formed by meiotic division. And ovule generally has a single embryo sac formed from megaspore through reduction division. Reduction division is meiotic division. Let us see that. Megasporogenesis. The process of formation of megaspores from the megaspore mother cell is called megasporogenesis. Just like a microsporogenesis, microsporogenesis is formation of a male gamete or formation of a pollen grains from the microspore mother cell, pollen mother cell, microsporocyte. The process of formation of megaspores from the megaspore mother cell is called megasporogenesis. Ovules generally differentiate a single megaspore mother cell. Ovules generally differentiate a single megaspore mother cell in the micropylar region of the nucellus. Micropylar region of the nucellus. This is the micropylar region. Here you come across. So what is that? Ovules generally differentiate a single megaspore mother cell, MMC, in the micropylar region of nucellus. So you can see here, megaspore mother cell. This is the nucellus. Nucellus. What is that nucellus? What is the function of nucellus? What is the function of the nucellus?
Reserve food material.
Serving the nourishment of the ovule. Ovules generally differentiate a single megaspore mother cell in the micropylar region of nucellus. It is a large cell containing dense cytoplasm and a prominent nucleus. You see a megaspore mother cell. Large nucleus. It is present at the micropylar end. In the center of nucellus. Nucellus provides nourishment to megaspore mother cell. It is a large cell containing dense cytoplasm in the prominent nucleus. The megaspore mother cell undergoes meiotic division. Meiosis results in the production of 4 megaspores. See here, it undergoes division. How many cells are here now? 2. Megaspore dyad. This is a megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell undergoes meiotic division and forms 4 megaspores. 2 megaspores here. Both these divide. And how many are there now? 1, 2, 3, 4. Megaspore tetrad. Like whatever you have seen, the pollen grains are tetrad. Here also, megaspore tetrad. Clear? Female gametophyte. In a majority of the flowering plants, one of the megaspore is functional while the other 3 degenerate. One of the 4 is functional, other 3 degenerate. Understood? only the functional megaspore develops into the female gametophyte, embryo sac. Female gametophyte is called embryo sac. Female gametophyte. Right? This method of embryo sac formation from a single megaspore is termed monosporic development. What will be the ploidy of the cells of the nucellus? Duti, what will be the ploidy? What do you mean by ploidy?
Sir, 2N.
2N, nucellus. MMC? Megaspore mother cell. 2N,
N.
diploid. There also
Yeah,
diploid.
diploid.
Megaspore mother cell undergoes meiotic division. The function of megaspore is a N. Function megaspore. Out of the 4, only in major plants, one of the megaspore is functional while the other 3 degenerate. So, function megaspore is a haploid. Ovisac. Only the function megaspore develops into female gametophyte, embryo sac. Female gametophyte is haploid or diploid. Haploid, diploid. Diti, Rakesh,
Sir, it is haploid, sir.
haploid. Nucellus, Rakesh,
Diploid, sir.
diploid. MMC, diploid. Function megaspore, haploid. Female gametophyte, haploid. Let us study formation of embryo sac in a little more detail. Look here. The new nucleus of the functional megaspore divides mitotically. This is mitotically. The nucleus of the functional megaspore, this function megaspore, it divides mitotically to form 2 nuclei, which move to the opposite pole, forming 2 nucleate embryo sac. 2 more sequential mitotic. Now 2, 2. Again divides 4, 4. So you see, first there is 1. It has divided mitotically into 2 nuclei. One has gone to 1, another has come here. This again divide and forms a 2. Again divides and forms 4. Understood? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The nucleus, Jyoti, are you understanding? Jyoti, are you hearing me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is clear. So, the nucleus of function megaspore divides mitotically to form 2 nuclei which move to the opposite poles, forming 2 nucleate embryo sac. 2 more sequential mitotic nuclear division results in formation 4 nucleate and later 8 nucleate stages of the embryo sac. 8. Now, it is of interest to note that these mitotic divisions are strictly free nuclear. Only nucleus divides and no cytoplasm. Therefore, one cell with 8 nuclei, one cell with the 2 nuclei, one cell with the 4 nuclei, one cell with the 8 nuclei. It is of interest to note that these mitotic divisions are strictly free nuclear. The nuclear divisions are not followed immediately by cell wall formation. After the 8 nucleate stage, the cell walls are laid. Now, after 8, cell walls are laid down, leading to the organization of the typical female gametophyte or embryo sac. This is what embryo sac. Embryo sac. Observe the distribution of cells inside embryo sac. This part we are covering in the next class. Right? So up to here, you have to read thoroughly before coming to my next class tomorrow.